Hey, I'm Paul, and in this video I'm bringing you a really interesting case, but at the same time super tragic, so I hope you like it. Before we get started with the video, I want to remind you that I have two other channels. One is a vlog where I share a bit more about my life. For example, today I've been filming, and I also have another channel about books where we talk about literature every week. So if you're interested in either of those two topics, I would really appreciate it if you go and subscribe. I also want to thank the channel members for all the support you give me. Channel membership is a monthly subscription that gives you some perks, like being able to watch videos a day early, occasional exclusive content, and I'm also hosting Zoom meetings with Supreme members. So if you want to have a video call with me, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe. Honestly, it's a lot of fun. Last week, you all helped me choose which paranormal stories from my subscribers I was going to include in a video, and I really enjoyed chatting with you on a video call. So if you're interested, I'll leave the link for you, and you can also click right here where it says join. And now, let's get started with the case. Kayden Mancuso lived in Pennsylvania, United States, with her mom, Katie, and her stepdad, Brian Sherlock. She had two stepbrothers whom she adored and cousins she always played with. Kayden is described as a vibrant girl. She loved playing outside, loved to dance, sing, and braid her friends' hair. Everyone knew she was very kind, sweet, the loudest girl, but also absolutely charming. At 7 years old, Kayden was a student at an elementary school, where she had good grades and was a talented athlete and gymnast. Kayden was also very close to her biological father, Jeffrey Mancuso. The two of them had a very strong father-daughter relationship. Even though he was a good father, things weren't going well between Jeffrey and Kayden's mom, as they were always arguing. According to Jeffrey's sister, Allison, Kayden was the light of her brother's life, who hadn't had a very nice life until Kayden was born. Jeffrey had a troubled childhood, which led to his alcoholism, and he also self-medicated. He was a very aggressive person. He had a lot of problems since he was a child, but the older he got, the more trouble he got into. When he was in high school, he argued a lot with his teachers, yelled at them loudly, got into fights all the time, and had several charges for different crimes, all related to violence. Allison believed that her brother had a minor brain issue, and that was the reason why he had so many problems. Jeffrey and Katie met in the summer of 2011 at Jersey Shore. She found him very attractive and fun from the very first moment she met him. They started dating, but their relationship was pretty casual until she found out she was pregnant. Even though their relationship was very casual, they still decided to move in together because they wanted the baby to have a home. Katie said in an interview that their relationship wasn't romantic. They only lived together for the baby's sake, so she could grow up with both her parents, but they slept in separate rooms. However, living with Jeffrey wasn't as easy as Katie had thought. Even though everything seemed fine at first, as time went on, things got more complicated, and Jeffrey became increasingly violent with her. Katie says that he used to make jokes about her, but it seemed like they were just jokes and little quips. But later, he started humiliating her and making really harsh jokes at her expense. Everything escalated little by little. At first, it was these jokes, then it turned into insults, and eventually he became physically aggressive with her. Katie said she was truly afraid for her life and didn't feel safe with him. On one occasion, she mentioned that he went as far as strangling her, and she felt like she was going to die, but she didn't know how to leave him. She wanted her daughter to grow up in a happy home with both of her parents. Even though Jeffrey was very aggressive with Katie, he was the complete opposite with his daughter, whom he adored. He seemed like a good father. He was affectionate, always played with his daughter, provided for her, and little Kayden adored her dad. She always said good things about him. Jeffrey's rage kept getting stronger and only got worse. He was no longer just violent with Katie at home. He was also violent with anyone who crossed his path, except for his daughter. One example is an occasion when Jeffrey was at a bar. He was drinking and then started arguing with another man who was also at the bar. At first, the fight was just verbal, but then it turned physical. He was hitting him and even bit his ear so hard that he tore off a piece, causing a pretty serious injury. Jeffrey was charged and had to spend some time in jail. That was the moment when Katie decided to leave. She packed up all her things, took Kayden, and left him. But she didn't want to end the father-daughter relationship, so she made an arrangement with him, allowing him to see Kayden on weekends, and he continued paying child support for his daughter. Sometime later, Katie met a man named Brian Sherlock, and she fell in love with him. He became a good father figure for Kayden. Before long, they got engaged and had a beautiful wedding where Kayden was the flower girl. Kayden developed a good relationship with her new stepfather, which really upset Jeffrey. He couldn't stand that his daughter was living a happy life with a new family without him. He was so upset that he went to court to fight for custody of Kayden. He did everything he could to get custody of Kayden, even lying, accusing Katie and Brian of being bad parents, negligent, and violent. He called the police multiple times, accusing them and asking the officers to go get Kayden. But every time the police showed up, they realized it was a lie. So after so many calls, and since it became such a common thing for Jeffrey to do, the police put a stop to it and told him that if he kept doing that and making false accusations, he would be the one facing charges. But Jeffrey didn't care and kept doing it. On top of that, his violent tendencies continued and he would completely lose control. In one incident, he even attacked his own mother in front of Kayden, who was completely terrified to witness that. Just imagine seeing your dad hit your grandma. It must be horrible. Later, Allison, Kayden's aunt, asked her if she had ever feared for her safety and if she was afraid of her dad. She answered yes. This wasn't the only time Kayden saw her father act in such a violent way. She had also witnessed her father hitting her puppy. I can't even imagine how terrifying that must have been. At this point, Katie was already extremely worried about her daughter's safety and did everything she could to keep her safe, trying to get restraining orders against Jeffrey. Sadly, the police didn't take her concerns seriously. They believed that Jeffrey was a good man and that he wouldn't be capable of hurting his daughter. I don't know how they could believe that, because they were aware that Jeffrey was a violent person, that he had several charges for different crimes, and yet they still thought he was a good person and fit to take care of his daughter. Even so, the officers told Katie that if she didn't have physical evidence that he was abusing her or putting her in danger, they couldn't do anything. During the custody trial, Katie took it very seriously, as she should. She even brought several witnesses who could testify that Jeffrey was a violent person, including a social worker who recommended that Kayden should not have a relationship with his father. Other witnesses included one of Kayden's teachers and his soccer coach, who witnessed a fight that Jeffrey had at one of Kayden's games. The teachers and other parents from Kayden's school also testified against him about his violent behavior. He was even banned from the school and prohibited from having any contact with the school because of his temper. Even with all this evidence, the judge was not convinced that Jeffrey was a bad person, but said it was clear that both parents needed therapy. So he ordered that Katie and Jeffrey undergo a psychiatric evaluation. The evaluation revealed that Katie suffered from anxiety. Jeffrey was diagnosed with anxiety and a high level of depression. He also had several narcissistic tendencies and antisocial personality traits. Despite everything, the judge did not believe that all this evidence was enough reason to prevent Jeffrey from seeing his daughter. When Kayden was asked what she wanted, she said this: "I want to spend lots of days with my dad." The judge said that she didn't mind spending time with her father and that she wasn't afraid of him. So he ordered that, since Kayden had not been physically harmed, Jeffrey was allowed to take care of her and continue seeing her. The custody evaluator said Kayden presents herself as a happy child, with a normal relationship with both parents. Despite this, he recommended to the judge that Jeffrey's visits with his daughter be supervised until he improved his mental health. Sadly, the judge didn't care about this recommendation and decided that Jeffrey had the right to see his daughter without supervision, which was a serious mistake. After the trial, Jeffrey showed up at Brian and Katie's house with the court order in hand and accompanied by police officers, demanding to see the little girl. Katie later said in an interview that her biggest regret was not ignoring the judge's decision. She would have preferred to go to prison if it meant keeping Kayden away from her father. On August 4th, 2018, Katie and Brian dropped the little girl off at Jeffrey's house. According to the official court order, Jeffrey had the right to spend the entirety of every single weekend with his daughter, but on Sunday afternoon, he had to return her safely back home to her mom. Unfortunately, Jeffrey did not follow this order. He didn't bring the girl back to them on Sunday, like he was supposed to. Katie called 911 and said she was afraid her daughter was in danger. The police refused to go to Jeffrey's house to check because they said there was nothing they could do and that she was safe since she was with her biological father. Katie was very worried and kept calling Jeffrey, but he never answered. She was afraid to go look for her daughter because she felt Jeffrey might hurt her, Katie. So she decided to wait a little longer. She said it was Sunday and that probably on Monday morning he would bring her back safe and sound. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The next day, Monday, August 6th, Brian, Kayden's stepfather, and her grandfather went to Jeffrey's house to look for the little girl. When they arrived, they started knocking on the door, but no one answered. Then they noticed the door was unlocked and decided to go inside, but they weren't prepared for what they found.
She was just laying there. Little girl.
Brian broke down in tears when he saw Kayden's little lifeless body. He loved her as if she were his own daughter. He was completely devastated. He immediately went outside and called 911. The authorities arrived within 3 minutes. The paramedics checked Kayden, hoping they could do something to save her, but it was already too late. Kayden had died. In addition, the police officers discovered Jeffrey's body inside his own bedroom, which was situated up on the 2nd floor. It was clear that he had taken his own life, but they didn't mention how. Kayden's autopsy revealed that she had been struck hard 4 times on the head before being suffocated with a plastic bag. Jeffrey left a revenge note which said, "The family got what they deserved." Kayden's death left the entire community in shock. Family and friends wondered how someone could do something so cruel to their own daughter. The little girl's family was completely devastated. They said they had always been afraid of Jeffrey and that he might hurt her, but they never imagined he would go this far. They blamed the police and the court for not taking the accusations seriously and for failing to protect Kayden. Katie was completely shattered. She couldn't believe her little daughter was dead, much less at the hands of her own father. She was also very sad and angry with the authorities because all of this could have been avoided if only they hadn't ignored her concerns. The case gained a lot of international attention, leading to renewed child protection laws. People in the community were very angry with the judge, who allowed Jeffrey to have these unsupervised visits with his daughter despite his record and ignoring his mental instability. A petition was created calling for the judge's resignation, which was signed by more than 400 people from the community. And that's all the information about the case. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's a truly tragic case. These cases really hurt me, especially when the victims are young children. And I just can't believe how a parent could be capable of that. Someone who said she was the light of his life and the only thing that mattered to him, and yet he still chose to commit this terrible act. Please leave your opinion in the comments section, because I love reading them. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed, you should subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you want to follow me on my social media, here you can see my mediocre Twitter where I don't post anything interesting, but if you want to follow me, you're more than welcome to do so. Same goes for my Instagram, where you definitely should follow me because I'm way more active there. I love you all so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!